Over recent months, I've been collecting unopened sticker packets from each of the last 11 World Cups. That's Spain 82 to Qatar 22. As we're now less than a year out from the 2026 tournament, I think it's as good a time as any to open them up and see what's inside. Maybe a Maradona, Messi or Mbappe? Or a Zidane, Ronaldo or Roberto Baggio? Probably not, but let's dive in and see who I find. Before I go any further, let me just introduce the nostalgia merchant side of the channel. It's this kind of material, basically. As you might expect from a fan of football history, I'm partial to a little wistfulness and sentimentality from time to time. So, in between the longer, more serious videos, you can expect some lighter stuff here and there. I've already started doing this with shorts, so check them out after this. Anyway, let's get started on some stickers. Marco Tardelli's unbridled joy softened the edge of a defensively resolute, counter-attacking Italy side that had fallen out of favour by eliminating the tournament darlings, Brazil. Beating West Germany in the final, and Harald Schumacher, with his presumably still dented hip, certainly helped the Italians' popularity too. But as the years have fallen away, Brazil remains the story of this tournament. The team of Socrates, Zico, Falcao and Eder seduced the world with their fun, fluid, attacking football. With poor showings in 1978 before this, and then again in 1986 and 1990, the Brazilians accepted that things had to change. Put simply, it was all too apparent that technically inferior teams could beat them in one-off games. Cue the gradual adoption of a more pragmatic European approach for the Seleção. It's no surprise that the champions of 1994 and 2002, albeit still lauded, are not as loved as the boys of 82. This Brazil stands with the Hungary side of 1954 and the Netherlands of 1974 in the pantheon of glorious non-winners. Well, that was disappointing. Off to a bad start. Looks like someone slipped in some passport photos there. Still, that Naranjito sticker was half decent, but that's a consolation goal at best. Let's skip forward 4 years. Diego. Has a single tournament ever been so dominated by and associated with one player? Yes, Messi, Zidane, Ronaldo and Mbappe have all shone at different World Cups, but no one has hit a tournament peak like Maradona in '86. The 25-year-old Diego was Argentina's captain, driving force and creative inspiration. He played the full 90 minutes in all 7 games and clocked up 10 goal involvements, 5 assists, 5 goals. He was also responsible for more than half of Argentina's shots in the tournament. He won the Golden Ball as the best player by a country mile, and his 2 goals against England defined his mythos. The greatest goal of the century and the hand of God. Watch my video about Napoli and Maradona to find out more about Diego's story. I'll leave a link to part 1 in the description below. That's much better. Look at that nice, clean, classic design. That Argentina sticker made my heart race for a second, but alas, no Maradona. I think that retro packet design was the star here. The Jekyll and Hyde tournament. Beautiful kits. The Ciao mascot. Pavarotti singing Nessun Dorma. The iconic stadiums. The rich, saturated colours of an Italian summer. All combined with football so dour, it brought about changes in the rules. Looking for some imagery? How about the clash of two titans in the Netherlands and West Germany, held in the stunning surroundings of San Siro, and then getting Frank Rijkaard gobbing in Rudi Voller's limp, sweaty perm. Gaza found it all too much. The Italians fell to Maradona's Argentina in Naples with an operatic twist, and the final was truly awful. Changes were coming in 1994, but one final highlight? During the unbearably tense atmosphere of the Ireland and Romania penalty shootout in Genoa, the Irish commentator George Hamilton came out with the immortal line, "Cascarino, against this fella." He was referring to Romanian goalkeeper Silviu Lung. It was either nervous tension or the perfect example of a lost era when World Cups, or rather some of the players playing in them, held a little more mystery. Not a fan of Merlin's design here. Like going to a cafe for lunch, always trust Panini. Still, Buruchaga scored the winner in the '86 final, so that's a catch. Seeing Championship Manager 97-98 legend Mark Emmers was a lovely touch. A sweltering World Cup of firsts. A win in the group would give teams 3 points for the first time, and goalkeepers could no longer handle deliberate back passes. Single yellow cards in the groups were wiped clear for the knockout rounds, and in a huge aesthetic change, player names were added to the back of shirts and small numbers to the front. This was also the first World Cup held outside the traditional powers of Europe and Latin America, marking FIFA's concerted efforts to globalize the game, while grabbing fistfuls of money along the way. This was a risk in 1994. At this point, the US didn't even have a professional national league. MLS was in the works, but didn't get up and running until 1996. Sweden, Bulgaria and Romania had incredible tournaments, but the romance was wrapped up in the tragic, heroic figure of Roberto Baggio. The divine ponytail had done more than anyone to haul Italy to the final, but it was his miss from the spot that confirmed Brazil as champions. And how about those nets? They continue to divide opinion. Personally, I'm a fan, but how do you feel about them? Back to classic Panini, another great packet and sticker design combination. Jorge Campos is the standout here surely, arguably the world's biggest fan of Stabilo highlighters. Ronaldo in his pomp, Baggio's redemption from the spot against Chile and France, Michael Owen's solo strike, followed by David Beckham's petulant flick, Dennis Bergkamp's last-minute majesty. Then there was the first ever World Cup golden goal, scored by Laurent Blanc no less. Lilian Thuram chose a decent time to score his only 2 goals for France. There was the politically charged Iran versus USA match, and World Cup debuts for Croatia, South Africa, Japan and Jamaica, in a new 32-team format that seemed to get everything just right. France finally stepped onto the world stage, and their multicultural, socially representative team had as diverse a range of backgrounds as the people cheering them on. For a while at least, this squad united a nation in sporting joy. Ronaldo's pre-final breakdown certainly played its part though. And let's just pay our respects to the era of the Predator accelerators. I'll stop short of saying hang them in the Louvre, but they were a true work of art. Golden era Panini still coming up with the goods as the 20th century drew to a close. Some solid names here, but no real standout stars. Any highlights for you? The first World Cup held in Asia. The footballing world continued to expand. While Japan flattered to deceive, the South Koreans had the tournament of their lives. Streets in Seoul were packed with millions watching public screenings as the Koreans defeated Poland, Portugal, Italy and Spain before falling to Germany in the semi-finals. But the games against Italy and Spain included, to be frank, some scandalous refereeing decisions. Criticism came from all sides, and even the referee committee chairman admitted that there have been 1 or 2 major mistakes which are cause for concern. That's a conservative estimate. Just Google Byron Moreno and see where that takes you. Ronaldo led the line for the champions Brazil, scoring 8 goals. From his 1998 heartbreak to back-to-back cruciate knee ligament injuries that nearly forced him to retire criminally early, this was one hell of a redemption. Is it just me, or are the stickers starting to get that generic, boring sheen? Maybe this coincided with the rise of increased marketing awareness and player image rights. The forces of football are always shifting, but this first World Cup of the 21st century feels like a key moment in the move toward unabashed corporatization. The last World Cup before social media exploded. And wasn't it nice? It's hard to look past Zinedine Zidane here. After scoring a Panenka against Gianluigi Buffon in a World Cup final, which was also the last game of his career, he planted his glistening rock of a head into Marco Materazzi's chest. The Italian later claimed that he had provoked the Frenchman by insulting his sister. Zizou bowed out with a red card, and France lost the final on penalties. For Italy, the victory came against the black cloud of the Calciopoli scandal back home. Juventus were demoted, titles were stripped, and Serie A was rocked to its core. Again. This World Cup win for the Azzurri salvaged a reputation that was in danger of disappearing entirely. We're getting more shiny and sheeny. The masses love a little razzle-dazzle. Speaking of which, a Brazil shiny isn't bad, but a pretty poor pack otherwise. The Vuvuzela, loved by locals, looked on a little less enthusiastically by many more. This divisive instrument flooded stadiums with 120 plus decibels of a monotone hum. That's louder than a chainsaw or lawnmower. But whatever you think of them, the Vuvuzela became the unforgettable beat of this tournament. This was Africa's debut on world football's biggest stage. Ghana led the continent's charge before coming undone by Uruguay and the Machiavellian might of Luis Suarez. Spain won it all, and Iniesta's winner, while not the most memorable aesthetically, had an inherent beauty. There was a touch of frantic, tired bodies and minds. The sudden calmness of Fabregas to lay on the assist. The wonderful moment where the ball hangs, time slows, and a stadium holds its breath. The sweet, unerring contact. The euphoric release when the net ripples. The tribute to a fallen friend, Danny Jarque, was the crowning glory, showing that, even at its peak, there's so much more to life than football. Oof, not a great pack. Let's just skip straight on to Brazil. 7-1. When obsession turned to humiliation, Brazil surrendered 5 goals in 18 minutes at home in Belo Horizonte, and their semi-final against Germany eventually ended in a drubbing, their heaviest ever competitive defeat. Without Neymar and Thiago Silva, Brazil simply collapsed under clinical German force. This was another national trauma in Brazil's football temple, Maracanazo 2.0. Brazil 2014 was the first World Cup to feature goal line technology, with the first tech-assisted goal coming in the France vs Honduras match, scored by Karim Benzema. And on a theme, let's finish with a 7-word sentence. Robin van Persie's header against Spain. Wow. A shiny is always welcome, so thank you, Switzerland. Nice to see David Luiz pop up, looking calm, measured and reassuring. There's no beating Thiago Silva here though, a cast iron legend. Was this the first true meme World Cup? There were so many. Neymar's spaghetti-like hairstyle came in for plenty of attention, but his remarkable rolling got even more. And then there were the countless "It's Coming Home" edits, Germany's group stage exit, Maradona's antics in the stands, the introduction of VAR, and Michy Batshuayi kicking a ball into his own face via the post. When eventual winners France eliminated Argentina, it felt like the end was nigh for Messi on the international stage. In fact, he had already briefly retired from international football in 2016. This came after back-to-back Copa America final defeats on penalties to Chile. By the end of this tournament, Messi had played in 4 World Cups and 5 Copa Americas, and had very little to show for it. Of course, the politics of this World Cup are impossible to ignore, but this is something I'll look at in an upcoming World Cup video. Well. Finally, something to really shout about. Pelé. Absolutely nothing to do with Russia 2018, and no doubt he's part of a Legends section to sell more stickers to increase profits. But let's just ignore that. Good Lord, what a final. The France-Argentina showdown was one for the ages. And after so much international heartache, Messi finally claimed his long elusive World Cup, having also won the Copa America the year before. Apparently the Argentines are quite fond of him now. The first Middle East tournament was also the first one held in a Northern Hemisphere winter. It showcased FIFA's seemingly never-ending global ambitions. And when you're trying to make a game for everyone, some people are going to be put out, and those shouting loudest were European leagues and fans. The tournament smudged football's old continuity, but only time will tell if it was worth it. As with Russia, it's impossible to avoid the political and moral questions associated with this tournament. But again, this is something I will touch on in the same future World Cup video. It will be a broad overview of the political, cultural and social context surrounding every tournament so far, as well as the 2026 edition in the United States, Canada and Mexico. Let's not beat around the bush. These stickers are awful. Old man shouts at cloud. The cut-out players with shadows, the colour scheme, player heights, weights and date of births, a colour-coded pitch to show their position. This is the polar opposite of those crisp, clean designs from the 80s and 90s. But then, I guess this has all proved a point. The game has moved on, for better and worse. Here is your bonus round. In 1994, Panini produced an album called World Cup Story. It was essentially a history of the World Cup from 1970 to 1990, with tournament-specific stickers and the squads of the two nations that reached the final in each of the 6 editions during that time. Let's see what we come up with. Jules Rimet still gleaming there, and a decent Italia 91, but we're probably looking at Uli Hoeneß as the standout. It feels a bit stingy on the amount of stickers though. I guess not everything has changed then. We're all still getting fleeced somehow. And isn't that really the true spirit of football? So, there we have it. Like any World Cup, there was a sluggish start, plenty of ups and downs, some boring bits, rushes of excitement, and, mercifully, an end, which is here. I've picked out these as my highlights from each pack. What do you think? Would you swap any out? Let me know in the comments. And please like and subscribe to help support this channel.